Hi, everyone. This is the reading for March 20th. It is the fifth Saturday of Lent. The theme for today is redeeming truth. And it comes from John chapter 11, verses 45 through 57. And this takes place after Jesus has raised Lazarus from the dead. Therefore, many of the Jews who came with Mary, the sister of Lazarus, and saw what Jesus did, believed in him, that is, raising Lazarus. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told what Jesus had done. Then the chief priests and the Pharisees called together the council and said, "What are we going to do? This man is doing many miraculous signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him. Then the Romans will come and they will take away our temple and our people." One of them, Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year, told them, "You don't know anything. You don't see that it is better for you that one man die for the people rather than the whole nation be destroyed?" He didn't say this on his own as high priest that year. He prophesied that Jesus would soon die for the nation, and not only for the nation. Jesus would also die so that God's children scattered everywhere would be gathered together as one. From that day on, they plotted to kill him. Therefore, Jesus was no longer active in public ministry among the Jewish leaders. Instead, he left Jerusalem and went to a place near the wilderness, to a city called Ephraim, where he stayed with his disciples. It was almost time for the Jewish Passover, and many people went from the countryside up to Jerusalem to purify themselves through ritual washing before the Passover. They were looking for Jesus. As they spoke to each other in the temple, they said, "What do you think? He won't come to the festival, will he?" The chief priest and the Pharisees had given orders that anyone who knew where he was should report it so they could arrest him. May God add a blessing to the reading, hearing, and understanding of God's holy word. Amen. Nicole Massey Martin lifts up for us verses 49 and 50 of the text. They were trying to calculate the risks. No, I should tell you what verses 49 and 50 are, shouldn't I? But one of them, Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year, said to them, "You know nothing at all. You do not understand that it is better for you to have one man die for the people than to have the whole nation destroyed." And she writes, they were trying to calculate the risks. If they did nothing, Jesus would start a revolution and further incite the Romans against the Jewish people. If they got rid of Jesus, there was a chance the movement would be stopped and things would return to normal. In what he perceived was conventional wisdom, Caiaphas urged them to spare the nation by taking the life of one man. Ironically, this is exactly what God had in mind. Throughout the scriptures, God demonstrated the ability to redeem evil motives and actions for good. God turned Joseph's enslavement into an opportunity for salvation. God turned Esther's captivity into a chance for communal vindication. And in the case of Jesus, God turned the vengeance of a small group into the redemption of the whole world. Perhaps this explains why God does not always prevent the advance of sinful plans against us. The same God who did not stop the evil intentions of the enemy is the one who has the power to turn everything around for good. Unbeknownst to those against us, their plans are still a part of God's ultimate plan. Their worst intentions become a part of the best intentions God had in mind all along. When evil plans appear to advance in our lives and in the world, God calls us to remember the irony of the cross. What was designed to be a tool for death became the symbol of redemption and life. Knowing God's redemptive power through Christ should cause us to laugh at the troubles that try to take us down. Like a trampoline at the bottom of a pit, God uses whatever sends us spiraling downward to catapult us into God's victorious plan. Instead of shying away from the weapons formed against us, we rejoice with knowledge that they will not prosper. Let the words of those who seek our demise be turned into ironic phrases of triumph and truth. Amen. When we were talking about this, I reminded the group that this was written pre-COVID, pre George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and all of those people that sort of created the resurgence of protest in support of lives. Black Lives Matter, Brown Lives Matter, Indigenous Lives Matter. And today, Asian and Pacific Island lives matter. So this was written long before any of these current protests that have been going on. This was written before COVID and all that has created. So I wanted to say that's first, is that this is written before all of that. The second thing I want to say is that this is really talking, I think, because I push back against what she's saying. So I think this is really talking about individual sin, individual evil, individual acts of oppression. Because systemic acts, systemic oppression, systemic racism, sexism, homophobia, misogyny, all of those different things on a systemic level are indeed evil. And I'm not sure we can find good in those acts. Now, we can look across the arc of history and say, and realize that, what started out as the riot or the uprising at the Stonewall Bar in Greenwich Village in New York turned into a movement for gay pride and eventually got to a place of marriage equality, right? And now trans equality and some of the anti-trans bias that we've started to see is rearing its ugly head, and I'm not minimizing that. But there is a way to see that those times of evil, when they have been met with resistance, can have the opportunity to turn into something that is positive. Same thing with the Voting Rights Act, the same thing with women's rights and reproductive choice. The same thing with anything that tries to hold back a group of people that over time, Dr. King and others, although he's the one who's most famously associated with this quotation, says the arc of history always is long, but it always bends toward justice. And that is true. So I do believe that systemically, the things that are evil will eventually, as the arc of history continues to bend toward justice, will eventually get us back to a place of understanding and believing and trusting that that we that we become the world that God intended, where everyone is valued. That being said, there are times when individual acts that that harm us, that hurt us, can sometimes be seen as a breakthrough, as a way of moving into something even better. We talked about sort of God's timing, and how if you lose a job, lose a relationship, lose well, we'll stay with losing a job, for example. If we lose a job, then while that is stressful and it's awful and it's in some cases terrifying, that may open up the opportunity for us to do something new and to do something that is more in line with what God has in store for us. So feel free to push back against what she's saying here. I do believe that there are individual circumstances where we can, after we've gone through the hard part, we can look back and see, oh, that's, I could see how it all aligned to get us to this new place. But it's kind of hard to see that when we're in the midst of it. And so I push back against what she's saying a little bit. But I do want us to hold on to this notion that even when we are in troubling times, even when we are in situations where life just doesn't make sense, right? That God is still with us, that God is holding us, God is supporting us. God puts people in our lives that hold us up and keep us grounded. And when we can't stand on our own, they hold us up so that we're able to stand. They hold us up in prayer, they hold us up in song, they hold us up in all kinds of different ways. So let me offer this prayer let me offer her prayer, her closing prayer. In times of opposition, help us to see the truth of your redemption. Thank you for working things out for our good. Amen. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.